So let's think about how to do fundraising. How do you do fundraising? Well, most of fundraising is just about relationship development. There just happens to be some money involved in the end. Now, when I first learned how to do fundraising, I was a college student. I was attending university and I was getting my master's degree at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. And one of the things that I went to was a graduate seminar on fundraising led by Don Gray, who at the time was the Vice President of Advancement for the University of Wisconsin School of Business. And he put this diagram up on the screen saying, this is how you do fundraising. Any questions? And we all looked at it really kind of perplexed until he said, well, let me put it this way. Is anybody in the room dating? Because in many respects, fundraising is just like dating. So let's walk through the development cycle with this analogy in mind. Starting with the pool of potential prospects. Now, with all of the people who potentially could be your date in the world, anyone could be a date, right? Well, not really. At some point, I hope that you have filters. Maybe you have morals. Maybe you have your type. Well, that's the thing about fundraising as well. We have a pool of potential prospects of people who could be your donor, but at some point, you have to filter them down to qualified prospects. Because realistically, there will be people in the world who will never support your cause. And that's okay, because there's plenty of people who will. But you can look at that person all day long across the room, and if you don't go up and introduce yourself, you're never going to get the date. So that's the next step in the fundraising process. You have to make initial contact. You essentially have to introduce yourself to your potential donor. Now, at some point, you may introduce yourself to someone and they may walk away immediately and get as far away from you as possible. If that's the case, they've indicated no interest. And if you continue to pursue that person, well, guess what? You're kind of a stalker. So let's not do that. Let's let the people that aren't interested in our cause go away and bless and release them, as I like to say. But for those people who have indicated some level of interest, we can start to have a conversation with them. This is the cultivation process. This is the process of getting to know the donor, getting to know your potential date, so to speak. And the thing about that is, if you think about being at a party or being at some kind of event, and you're talking to someone who can only talk about themselves, at some point you're thinking, God, can I get away from this person any faster? And that's one of the challenges we have in the nonprofit sector, is that we talk a lot about ourselves. The whole point of the cultivation process is to develop a relationship. So you want to be able to have a conversation with your donor when possible. So ask them questions, learn about their interests, learn about what makes them tick. And that's going to help you in the next stage, because you're not going to get the date, you're not going to get the gift unless you ask for it. So at some point, you are going to have to take the plunge and ask for something. Now, what may happen now, they might say, you know what, I'm busy on Saturday, and I'm going to be busy on Saturday for the rest of your life. Well, if that's the case, you have seriously misjudged that relationship development process. However, that's not usually what happens. Usually, when someone says, hey, sorry, it's followed with, I'm sorry, I'm busy on Saturday, maybe another time. So maybe you asked and it wasn't the right time. Or maybe you asked and they said, you know, I'm really not into that activity. I really don't want to see that movie. Or, you know, gee, I'm really not into, I don't know, wrestling. And that case, you've asked for the wrong thing. You've made the wrong ask. Or maybe it's a situation of the, you know, gee, we just met, it's a little soon to be your date to your sister's wedding. Maybe it's too big of an ask. So sometimes when you get a no, it's just about those things. Maybe it was the wrong time, maybe it was the wrong thing, maybe it's the wrong size. So what do? You go back into cultivation and you get to know that donor a little bit better. So you go through that cycle, you may go through that cycle many times, but then at some point you might ask for something, and guess what? You might get a yes. And if you get a yes, you say, yay, we got the gift. But what happens next? You better show up for the date. So if you don't show up for the date, guess what? You're not going to get another date, and that's stewardship. What you want to do is show up for the date and tell the donor that you're going to do what you said you were going to do. Assuming you show up for the date and everything goes well, you can repeat this cycle over and over and over again. So assuming that all goes well, you could get another gift or another gift or another gift. But at some point, anyone, you or the donor, can exit from the cycle. You can decide that this isn't working anymore. But the great thing about this is that you're constantly moving through this relationship development cycle so that you can make sure that people continue to invest in your cause. So that's how fundraising is just like dating.